Okay, it started.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So, okay, so this is maybe the 12th, I think the 12th year of doing this class. And um, so you should come early, okay? Uh, for a few reasons. One is that I'd like to start at 7. Two is you're going to feel much more comfortable, much more relaxed if you come earlier. Like I would say to come a quarter to 7. And if something happens at the last minute that needs jiggling, there might be a possibility that we could figure something out. Um, you should keep track of your emails. That's how I communicate with you. And so really keep track of them. And if I ask you to write back, just jot something back like, I got your email, something simple. Um, okay, when I set up the dates for this class, I didn't realize that next week is a Jewish holiday. Okay, so we're not going to come next week. We're going to come the week after. But I'm going to ask you to do something from tonight to 2 weeks from now. So you'll be quite involved with that if you can do it. Um, so I'm going to ask you to view a film by the artist that I'm going to discuss first. And this film, I'm going to send you a link for it tonight or tomorrow morning. And this film is about Antonio Lopez Garcia. And that's the start off artist. And I'd like to introduce that artist in the last part of this class. So this film is called The Quince Tree Sun. Quince Tree Sun. There are two other videos that I'm going to send. So if you've seen that video, that film, you may not want to see it again. I think the film is great. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. But the second video is an interview, and the third, an interview of Antonio Lopez, and the third video is um, a video of an exhibit that took place in Barcelona and in Holland uh, during the last few months. I went to see that exhibit in Holland. So that is very interesting. So you have 3. You should definitely see the Quince Tree Sun. The director of that film, his name is Victor Erice, Erice. He is a very, very interesting man, a very, very good director. And the film is an unbelievable film on an artist. It really gives you a sense of what making art looks like. Um, the film is made, the tone and the light in the film is made by someone who has an affinity with Antonio Lopez Garcia. It's the same type of light and tone that you'll see in the film as you see in his work. Victor Erice has only done 4 films in his life, and this is one of the 4. He did another film, which is an amazing film called Spirit of the Beehive. I don't know if any of you saw this film, but It's a brilliant film. Okay, so I'll send that link later tonight or tomorrow morning. And just say I got the link, I got the message. Um, you should keep the password for the class in a safe spot so you don't lose it, so you can recall it, you can retain it. Um, my suggestion would be to get a small notebook where you can keep track of notes from the class. Um, the notes could be uh, on Victor Arice. It could be on the name of this film. It could be on an artist that we talk about. I want to look up that artist. It could be on a book. It could be on anything. So this, for this class to really be terrific, it's good if it spreads out. It's a very interesting and nice idea. Or you could write in your book, I don't agree with Simon's point of view. Uh, I think he's nuts. I don't like this. Okay, you could go on in that way, or you could say, "What a brilliant class! Uh, how intelligent this person is." That would be nice. But in other words, and then I would also use it for things that you see, things that you see in terms of film, read, visual, be like a kind of all-purpose diary, which starts with this class. Um, so I want to do something which I do in every class, which I like. Maybe some of you are a little antsy about this, but I really like this because you get to know each other. You get to know who the other people are. So what I'm going to ask you is to tell me your name and what your connection is with art, or fine arts. So for instance, it could be I'm learning how to paint now, and I think this class would help me. Okay. Could be very simple, or it could be um, I love looking at art, and this is an interesting way of understanding what I'm looking at. And then I want you to list one work of art that you saw in the last few months that you were very struck by. It really sent you. It really got to you. It's really exciting. Um, so I'm going to start. So this is from me. Um, so I'm Simon. Oh, but before I do this, I want to mention someone who is not here now, who took this class. Some of you will remember him, took this class, every single class for 12 years, the whole period of time. Um, Jim, um, and uh, a few months ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, he passed away. And some of you will remember him. And um, I, I, I really liked him a lot. And I will miss him a lot. So I just wanted to mention that. So from my contribution would be I am Simon Dinnerstein. Simon, much better. And I'm working on a very large painting that I'm quite obsessed with. And that's all I do is work on this painting. Um, um, what I saw recently, which I was very struck by, was the exhibit in Holland of Antonio Lopez Garcia. I went there for 2 days to see this exhibit, and spent 2 days at that exhibit and then flew back. Uh, and I would recommend a film um, by Wim Wenders called Beautiful Days. Beautiful Days, which I saw just recently.
It's
And
called A Perfect Day,
oh,
isn't it?
perfect day, perfect days, which I thought was brilliant, a really brilliant film.
Hmm.
So let's go quickly. I want you to spend like a minute doing this, what tops 2 minutes. So let's go to Kathy.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Kathy Firamasca, and I've been painting for decades. I was an illustrator for years. Um, I primarily do portraits, and I teach watercolors. And I guess the piece that really impressed me, I never got to see Michelangelo's David, and I finally got to see it last weekend. So I was happy. I went to Florence twice before, never got there, finally got there. So that was massive. And so that was very impressive.
Super, super. Um, it's Herman here now. Okay, Len.
Yeah. Hey, so Len Ross, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read a quote from John Adams that sums up for me what I think about art and how I feel about it. Adams said, "I must study politics and war that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. My sons ought to study mathematics and philosophy, geography, naval history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture in order to give their children a right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain." I've always loved that. Adams
Wonderful.
just, sorry?
Wonderful.
Yes, Adams knew we toil in our day-to-day doing so that we can aspire to something greater. This summer, not long ago, my girlfriend and I visited Tokyo, and we went to this exhibit called Team Labs Planets. That was an immersive room-to-room art experience. Each room had a tactile element, an audio element, and many different visual elements, all moving and swirling and doing their thing. It was quite immersive and extraordinary if you ever have opportunity.
Great, great. Okay, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a retired school principal, and I studied many years ago. I studied art and have a bachelor's in fine arts and painting. And just recently, I've kind of taken it up as I would call it a hobby, not more than that. I have to reteach myself. And this summer, I did go to the new gallery, and I saw Paula Modersohn Becker's art, and I think her self-portrait was just stunning. And yeah, was very inspired by her work.
I'm pleased you went. I'm pleased you went. Um, okay, Ron, I can't hear you.
It's telling me, it actually tells me to unmute. That's fantastic. This is the second year for the seminar for me. I'm still a practicing psychiatrist in Washington, D.C., with another sort of place out here in New Mexico, which I come to. My late wife and I were omnivorous collectors of many, many things, including art. I can't think of anything I've seen recently, except perhaps a wonderful production of Comedy of Errors, which is being Simon Godwin created for the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, which is a marvelous rendition. That's been fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Frank. I'm sorry, Frank Horton.
Hi, I'm Frank Horton. My
background is kind of in journalism. I was at NPR, and then I worked on a podcast production. But my love is really film. And so I saw a great film recently. It was Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt with Joseph Cotton. And I
Yeah.
thought it was his best film that he'd ever
Oh.
done.
Well, well, thank you. So now Rita.
Yes, my name is Rita. I'm a former neighbor of Simon, right next door to him. Miss the neighborhood, but I've gone to some less than impressive art gallery showings out in the Hamptons where I was this summer, but I read a wonderful book, The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. Maybe some of you have read it. And race, religion, history, mystery, very elevating book for the spirit. I highly recommended.
Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, Carol.
Me?
Yeah, Carol.
Yeah. I'm Carol Gerstle. I'm a retired labor lawyer. Have a great love of art and seeing art, and this is about my 5th class with Simon, and I love it because it helps me see art in different ways and better ways, and it's been great. And let's see, this summer, while I was up in Maine, I went to the Farnsworth, and I have to say, first of all, that I was never a great Andrew Wyeth lover until I started taking these classes, and Simon really opened it up. And this summer there was a small exhibit at the Farnsworth of his more abstract works. They called it Andrew Wyeth Abstract. And since I also love abstract work, it was really a marvelous exhibit of his work.
I actually have seen the catalog of that show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, actually a friend of mine worked on that catalog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I have it because he gave it to me.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Donna.
Hi, my name is Donna. I am retired, but I started painting as a hobby and I'm moving along with it. I do take classes at Snug Harbor, and I've done workshops with Kathy Fermasca. I did one in Tuscany with her. I've done some Zoom with her and some in person. All I can say, she's a fabulous watercolorist, and she's probably the best instructor I've had so far. Really admire her. As far as my own personal stuff, I can't recall any movies that I've seen recently, but I do belong to a film club. So when we do see movies, we do very much get into discussions of them. And when it's involving an artist, it's always very interesting. So one of the things I hope to accomplish here is really getting into a bit of art history, but also the art appreciation aspects of it. An exhibit I recently went to this summer was in Old Lyme, Connecticut at the Florence Griswold Museum, which is very interesting. It was started as an artist colony back around the Victorian era, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a beautiful setting. It looks like an impressionistic painting, the whole setup of the house that Florence Griswold lived in and had these artists staying.
Yes.
And the last exhibit that I saw there again was this summer, and it was American Impressionism. And there were a number of Connecticut Impressionist painters in there. One of the ones I really admired was an artist named Childi Hassam. I didn't realize that there was so much, I hate to say local talent, because Connecticut is a local place for me and it's a place I grew up in. But so far, that's it. I'm looking forward to this class and a lot of interesting exhibits this year.
Great, great. Okay, Chuck.
I'm Chuck Stark. I'm a retired antitrust lawyer in Washington. I've done some amateur painting and drawing all of my life. I never miss a chance to visit a decent museum if I'm in a place where there is one. And actually, today I was at the National Gallery. Sophie and I were at the National Gallery, and so it's kind of hard to limit myself to one piece of art that that struck me. But one that did is an exhibit there on the first Impressionist show, and contrasting the works of the Impressionists with the works that were in the salon at the same time. But there was an absolutely wonderful early Monet called Impression Sunrise, which absolutely knocked my socks off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, while at the gallery, we couldn't help doing pilgrimage to the gallery's 3 Vermeers, just wonderful Vermeers. There used to be 4 Vermeers until the gallery decided that one of them wasn't actually a Vermeer, and that wasn't hanging there, so I have no idea what part of the attic they put that in. And then, of course, the magnificent Rembrandt self-portrait that the National Gallery has in his grizzled old age, which is just one of the most magnificent pieces of work that I know. But of course, that's an embarrassment of riches there. Oh, and then of course the one fabulous Leonardo that's in the Americas, a Leonardo portrait, which is just breathtaking. But I'll stop there because it is a building full of great stuff.
Yeah, that this reminds me of something. I'll get back to it later. Anna Marie. Anne Marie.
Hi. Yes, this will be my 3rd class with Simon, and Kathy introduced me to it, which because I'm taking watercolor classes also with Kathy Firamasca, which have just opened up a whole wonderful experience for me in exploring art, because while I was teaching, I didn't have any time for art, for my painting, so now I do, and it's been really a great experience. The last art exhibit I saw, I don't know if it's an art exhibit, but it's the Great Elephant Migration down at the Meatpacking District in New York. Mm-hmm. It's concert, it's for funds for conservation of elephants in India, and it's just really remarkable how they're based on individual elephants. They've done detailed drawing, photo, and then reproduction of these elephants. So they're baby elephants, and they have their names with them, and it's just really lovely. So I recommend it's going to be over, I think, October 20th. So if you can get down there, enjoy it.
Thanks. So is Lucia here now? No. Okay. Roxana.
I had to unmute. I'm there.
Okay.
In the early or middle aughts, I took a drawing class, painting class with Simon when I lived 2 blocks away. And then now I am I've been working in education with little ones for a long time. The reason, and I do love to paint, that's my hobby. But I recently I also saw the Paula Modersohn Becker exhibit at the New Gallery, and I was really struck by her. Mostly not. It was a powerful show, but her early work, mostly in charcoal, of the community she was living in at the time, the workers in the community, and one particular
Yes.
drawing was
Yes.
It was from 1898, 1899, and the title alone was like "Woman in Profile Turns Right."
The sound of the mic.
Hi. So it was very powerful, and it kind of reminded me of Kath Kowitz, who came, 40 years later, but just the amount of it was just very powerful, and it was just charcoal. It wasn't painted, but that was the
That's
recent one I saw.
Great, great.
And I'm an on and off again student of Simon. Sometimes I make it for a few, and sometimes I don't, because I have too much Zoom in my life.
Okay, that's great. So is Judy here? Judy Stossel? No?
Yeah. Can you see me?
Uh,
No.
I can't see you. Oh, there you are. There you are. Okay.
Oh,
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Judy Stossel. I'm a semi-retired healthcare professional, and art has always been part of my life. My mother was very good painter. She drew, and we had a lot of paintings in the house. And I always dabbled in watercolor or pencil, but that's as far as that goes. I haven't seen anything lately because of how my life has been past 6 months or so, but I did see Simon's work on Facebook, and that's how I got here. But I do really love art, and I did see the statue of David in Italy several times, and that was a wonderful experience. And that's about it.
That's great. That's great. It's nice to meet you. This is the first time I've met you, and
But
very much hope you enjoy the class. And everyone here is a very nice group, and it's not competitive or snobby. It's very open, and that's the way it should be. Um, Alan.
I'm Alan Rose, and I am an architect. And I guess I'm at this point, I'm also not permanently retired, but partially retired. Um, and I have been, I had taken Simon's drawing classes way back in the 60s at the New School, and then later in his studio. So I've been doing a lot of drawing throughout the years, but lately I've decided to learn how to paint. So I've been working for the last couple of years painting, and I have to say this class has had definitely a really good in a way it's helped my painting quite a bit. And it's kind of inspired me. And I've seen a lot of things over the summer. It's kind of hard to pick one. And actually, I had gone to MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, just not knowing what I was going to see. I mean, I know it's there, but I didn't know what exhibitions they might have. And I wound up seeing this exhibition of, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, Katie Kolowitz.
Yes, yes.
And that, I walked in and I said to myself, these are these wonderful drawings. Well, they weren't drawings. They were prints. They were etchings and woodcuts and lithograph prints. They were just amazing, absolutely amazing. And some of them I think were portraits. Some of them were still lifes. But the interesting thing about it is that what she had done, she would do an etching or a print, and then go back to whatever the process, and would do another, not another one, but would kind of work on that print and then make another, not print, but work on the block or whatever she's working on and make another print. And she did this several times, so that there were some, maybe a series of 5 or 6 prints.
Yeah.
And, you can see how they kind of develop. But each one of them was really, even on their own, was the work of art, actually.
Alan, you weren't in the class last term, and that exhibit was one of the
Right.
areas
Oh,
that we studied, and
uh-huh.
a very strong show, very, very strong. So I agree. I agree totally with what you're saying. So the next one would be Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen Taylor. I'm an artist from birth. Although I never knew how to make a living at it, and I still don't. But I didn't really understand. Something's funny.
Well, I identify.
Oh, yeah, I have on my website that I was born with Crayolas in my hand. From grade school, I did the covers on our little school plays and that kind of thing. But I didn't know what to do with it. But I took art classes in the evening or anytime I could while I worked at whatever, and even got an MBA at one point because I didn't know what else to do. So, but I couldn't stand business anymore. So 30 years or so, I started, seriously painting, although, as I said, I had all along. And talk about being obsessive. My last painting took me 2 years, and the one I'm working on now, I think it's not done, and it's probably going to take 2 years. But I learned so much from each one, even technical things like how to draw an ellipse in perspective. Try to do that. So I am so envious. I feel experientially deprived when I hear all the shows that you guys see in New York. I'm just outside San Francisco, and we have 4 museums, but they're all basically regional museums. So we don't get the big shows, and there aren't nearly as many museums and places to show. But you'd mentioned when I was last class, not wanting to see art that was just wallpaper, and which I don't either. So I was thinking, what kind of painting do I like? And I want it to be aesthetically appealing, and I want to be awestruck. I don't want to be depressed by it. I don't want to see a lot of art with really depressing social commentary. But Michelangelo's Moses just came to mind. It's so powerful and it's so beautiful. So that would be the kind of painting I like.
I think the use of the word awestruck is terrific. I totally agree. So Frank McGarry.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm a former music teacher at an elementary school in Brooklyn, PS 321, where I met Renee, Simon's wife, many years ago. And I'm so happy to see my friend and former colleague, Jeremy, here on the screen. Good to see you. And something I've seen recently is, I think, Simon, I ran into you in front of the school, actually. And you told me about the Paul and Modersohn Becker exhibit at the Neue Gallery, which I had not been aware of, and caught it in just the last couple of days that it was available. And like Anna and Roxana mentioned, it was really great. And the charcoals also really struck me as really spectacular. There's a kind of a pair of charcoals, big works hanging on the wall, a farmer and a farmer's wife, which I thought were really, really striking.
Super. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree totally. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Stickney, And I live in Santa Fe, and I'm a retired professor from St. John's College in Santa Fe. There's a branch in Annapolis, but I'm in the Santa Fe, on the Santa Fe campus. And I'm delighted to be retired because I don't have to deal with the classroom, but I can still meet with all my colleagues and partake of faculty study groups. And so just recently, we did a lot of Rilke. And so I'm very interested. I so envy all of you that saw the Paula Mortensen Becker exhibit because, of course, she and Rilke were close. And I'm looking forward to that part of Simon's class. Yeah.
You're intimidating me.
No.
But that's good. I have to come up with the goods. Susan, thanks. Let me see. Kristen, is Kristen here? Oh no, she couldn't come. Matthew.
Just unmuting myself. Hi, Simon.
Hey.
So Simon and I have known each other for probably close to 50 years now.
Amazing.
Simon and Renee were good friends with my parents in Rome when Simon was there at the American Academy. My parents were both journalists, and so we were living there in the 70s. I also later lived in Prague for many years. So I've kind of been immersed in European art for most of my life, whether I wanted to or not. I took a lot of art history classes in college and really enjoyed them. My career didn't take me into art, and I never really found the time or energy to do any painting or drawing, although I took a lot of art classes at Pratt Institute when I was younger. And I enjoyed making art, but my career has been more in graphic design and branding, and then later in journalism. Now I'm a freelance writer and editor, and my father was a stamp collector, which is a hobby that I inherited, and gradually over time became interested in the fact that a number of famous artists as a sideline designed postage stamps, which are very small and very utilitarian, but sometimes can be very beautiful. And I show one if I can't share my screen now, but Edwin Scharf was a German artist in the 1920s and 30s. Before the Nazis came to power, he was quite successful also as a sculptor. And then they declared him a degenerate and banned him from working, and he had to flee. But he designed one single postage stamp early in his career, which was such a stunning departure from the conventions of the time because it was purely in the tradition of German Expressionism. And so I wanted to learn more about this and write about it, and found myself struggling a little bit to find the vocabulary to describe these things properly. So that's why I thought I'd sign up. This is my first time taking your course, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I must say, Matthew, that is the most unusual reason for taking this class I have ever heard of, but it's great. It really is great. So is Jason here?
I am here, and if you're wondering why my photo isn't showing, it's because I just switched from Windows 10 to 11, and apparently there's a glitch, so you can't see me. And I even got a haircut, so I won't be able to show you that. But of what's left. So this is now my first class with Simon, and I recognize a few of you from before, like Rita and Ron. And I went to law school in Washington. I've been retired for a while, and of course, all the Smithsonian Museum just opened their arms to me. And so it was mentioned National Gallery of Art. My practice was very intense litigation. So whenever I could at lunchtime, I'd go over to the National Gallery of Art at lunchtime and sit or stand and focus on a couple of pieces of art, which basically put me in a total another world for what I was doing before, what I was going to get to in the afternoon. So I spent a lot of time in museums, Then when I got married, my wife was a museum professional. She had her own company. She was a museum exhibit designer, designed museums from small exhibits to entire museums, mostly on the West Coast and a little in the Midwest. And wherever we travel, we go to museums. She was always taking notes, and we'd always go behind the scenes. So unlike a lot of people, I just don't look at the art for visual reasons and other reasons. I understand what's behind it, how you put an exhibition together, how many years, the kind of effort that goes into it, and the difficulties in dealing with collectors, etc. So that's, and also labeling. One of my biggest problems is labeling. There's so many great museum exhibitions I've seen where the labels are terrible. Either they don't explain enough, you can't read them, etc. But but I don't want to complain. I'm a member of 13 museums, most here in LA. I live 5 minutes from Getty and also some others outside of here. But my favorite museum, which I really support, is some of you may not be familiar with it, is the Palmer Museum of Art at Penn State. In June, they opened up a new 70,000 square foot museum. The museum belongs in a big city. The aesthetics and the architecture are terrific. But this gets me to some of my favorite paintings. But first, the most recent exhibition I saw was Camille Claudot, the sculptor, who was Rodin's muse and pupil. In fact, some of his work may be attributed to her. It was a wonderful exhibition here, and I really like sculpture. So that's how I met Simon. Because back a couple years ago, on the 50th anniversary, I met Simon there because Simon's most famous painting, the Fulbright Triptych, is at Penn State at the Palmer Museum of Art. And and so if you ask, even though I saw it again in June, it may not be the last few minutes, but if you've never seen it, it's worth a trip, and you may have read about it. And it would take a couple of classes to describe it and go into it. So that's one of my favorite pieces. And that's how we met Simon. Simon twisted my arm a couple of years ago to take a class. He didn't have to twist too hard. But anyway, I'm back. And one of the things for me, a class like this, I can't paint. I was never good except drawing stick figures. But what's important to me is the focus. That is making me think and to visualize what I see. And so with other people I know who are like younger out in museums, and a student at Penn State asked me, well, how do you go about when you go in a museum? How do you look at paintings? Where do you start? And so I had this happened recently on a Zoom call, a great discussion of what art meant and, perception and what that means to you. So art is so important to me. And I don't want to sound like I'm tooting my horn, but I guess it is in a way. I recently created, I think it's the first program of any university in the country, as far as we know, uh, a lot of museums have internships, including university museums. But I was thinking about how do students, younger people, get interested in museums? And it's well established. The younger you start, the more likely you engage with art museums later in life. So I created this program, which are 3 grants a year, and the students are selected not by me, and they have 3 choices. They can get an internship at a museum anywhere in the U.S., go to a museum conference, or visit 5 museums anywhere in the US, and they have to write a report and do things. It's the third year now, and it's been successful because it's getting students to learn not just visual perception and what art, but to learning about museums as a profession. Art is a profession. And a couple of them have graduated and they're going to master's degrees in programs that are related to art. So I know that's longer than a minute, but I just wanted to give you some background.
Jason, this very extremely articulate. Thank you so much, and of course, thanks for your response to my painting at the Palmer Museum. The next person I have is Jeremy.
Hi, I'm Jeremy, and I am Simon's son-in-law. I think the most striking piece of art I saw recently was last month I was in London, which is a city I know well. But a friend took me to Tower Hamlets, which is a Bangladeshi neighborhood now. I mean, it's not like New York; it's mixed, but it still has a lot of Bangladeshi residents. Used to be a Jewish neighborhood. And there's an extraordinary mural there, enormous, like 3 stories high, of the Cable Street riots. And the Cable Street riots, the mural itself is vertiginous. It's almost, it's painted as though you're looking up at the riots. The Cable Street riots took place in 1936 when the British Union of Fascists tried to march through London, or through Tower Hamlets in particular. Of course, that was before everyone had explained that the fascists were bad. So lots of people thought the fascists were good at that point, including the British aristocracy, and indeed the British ruling class. And they weren't even able to march themselves. It was the police who were repelled at Cable Street as they tried to fight their way through to clear a path for the fascists to march. And it was painted in 1983 at the height of the miners' strike, when again nobody had explained that the miners were in the right and the regime was in the wrong. So it was a beautiful painting that embodied, firstly, that was monumental and public, and that secondly, it was representing a moment where people had had to take a stand against something that was not received wisdom, painted in a moment where they were doing the same thing. And it just struck me that there were so many meanings in that painting. Number one, it was very beautiful and stirring and sort of, as I say, vertiginous to look at. And also, in terms of its historical location, it was absolutely fascinating. So yes, so I thought that it would be, I thought this would be, it's always interesting to think about art, I guess.
So if I was going to look that painting up, I'd look up Cable Street riots.
Yeah, Cable Street riots, Tower Hamlets.
Tower
Hamlets.
Okay. So I don't know if I covered everyone. Herman, did you speak?
Yes.
You did speak.
No, I didn't speak yet.
So could you speak and keep it down to like a minute or two?
Yes, I'm a retired engineer. I worked mostly in aerospace, electro-optical instruments, the first half of my career. The second half of my career, I did microfluidics and developing instruments and devices for bio use in the consumer market. I was introduced to Renee and Simon by a mutual friend about almost a year ago, and I love art. I go to a museum anytime that I can make it. Most recently to the Neue Gallery at the recommendation of Simon, and I love the work there. And so I'm very intrigued by art. I was highly creative in my engineering field, and it has always been my frustration that I'm zero creativity in art. But I'm nevertheless interested in to intellectually make up for my lack of ability to create art. And so I'm really looking forward to learn some more about art from Simon on this course.
Okay, so I think everyone has spoken. Am I correct? Okay, so I'm going to now share the screen with a painting of Antonio Lopez Garcia. So let me see if I could do this. Okay. So, all right. So this is the first painting that I saw of this artist.
You're not sharing it yet, Simon. We can't see it.
Can you see this? Can you see this?
No.
Nope.
What's the problem?
We got bupkis.
My
What?
eyes are.
I can't hear you. What's the problem?
We
I
can't see.
think only Renee as the host can share her screen. I don't think you can.
Renee can make you co-host, Simon.
He is going this way. She's not here.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, okay. I thought there was something wrong because I didn't see the people on the side. Okay.
Right.
And now I see the people on the side.
Right.
Okay, so I know this artist's work very well, and I would like to introduce his work to you. The film I would like you to see for 2 weeks from today. The film, The Quince Tree Sun. So I would like you to do that. You'll get the link later tonight or tomorrow. So this is not, I misspoke before. This is not a painting. This is a sculpture. And so this sculpture is about 80 inches wide. Could you do me a favor? Could you mute your microphones? Okay, please mute your microphones because I hear an echo there. Ah, great. Okay, so this was the first piece of work that I saw of this artist, Antonio Lopez Garcia. This is a painted wood sculpture, polychrome sculpture. I saw this sculpture in an interesting way. I saw a review of two artists in the New York Times. Luckily, the review showed this image. So it was a review of two artists, and the reviewer at the time was a man named John Kennedy, and he was a very important reviewer. And so I took notice of this sculpture. And the review came out a week before the exhibit ended. So I went to see this exhibit at Stemfley Gallery in New York. Stemfley is an unusual spelling, Staemp FLI, Staempfli. And this was a gallery that was not on street level, was on the second floor. And it was a gallery that you had to know where this gallery was to go there. So I saw this exhibit because of a review in the New York Times. There was maybe 20 pieces in the exhibit, and this was in 1968. I thought at that time that this was the single best exhibit I had seen of a contemporary artist. And I was extremely struck by it. So one of the things that struck me was the interest in figurative art and in people and in life, but also concurrently an interest in modern or modernist ideas or contemporary art ideas or in contemporary directions in art. So here we have something that is figurative and modern, or I think so anyway. So this piece is about 80 inches wide, and it is constructed as a relief on a block of wood that was about 4 inches thick. and hung on the wall. So this was an event that happened, and I felt very lucky to have seen this. It made me aware of something that I was not aware of, but big time. And I like that idea. In other words, I like the idea that at any given moment, you could look in a newspaper and see something that turns you around. And that kind of thing doesn't happen at all. Most times when I look at art reproduced in a newspaper, it just wings right by. But I maintain that hope that something will hit me, whether it's art or literature or a film or something. So this really hit me. And so the study of his work is quite fascinating. And I would like to really attempt to do a good job with this. It really means a lot to me. So the one thing that I'm not sure about in dealing with his work is how many classes to spend on it. And I I'm not sure in my head if it should be one or two. And maybe at some point, the next time I see you, you can tell me if it should be that class or an expanded two classes. But in any case, you should look at those films about him. Um, so, on a personal note, which for me it has to connect with his art, on a personal note, um, seeing this exhibit in 1968 um, meant a lot to me in terms of the possibilities of art, the possibilities of subject matter, and the possibilities of mystery. But finally, it meant a lot to me in terms of that gallery. Now, um, that gallery was not a gallery that specialized in figurative art. They showed art from um, many European artists, California artists, and Japanese artists. California would include artists like David Park, Elmer Bischoff, and Richard Diebenkorn. And Stempfli introduced those artists to New York. So he himself had interest in figurative art, but it was a different kind of figurative art. It was an art that connected with a modernist framework or was open to that. So I had never been to that gallery before seeing this exhibit, and I had never been to the gallery after seeing this exhibit until 4, 5, maybe 6 years after, or 5 years, 5 years after. So in 1970 and 71, I lived with my wife, Renee and I lived in Germany, and I had received a Fulbright grant. And in the middle of that year, I began to work on a triptych, a very large painting. And it was a very obsessive period of time. We then returned to the United States. And in terms of the triptych, if you know the painting, I worked on the middle panel, and the left and right panels were drawn in, but the middle panel I worked on. And maybe for another year. So it's like around 1972, maybe 1973, another year after returning. And we had a tremendous financial problem. And I could not continue to work on this painting or have a studio. It was a big calamity, big problem. So I remember, I thought maybe I should try to find a gallery. And I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't sure which way to go. And also I had an idea about showing my work, which was maybe somewhat different than other artists. I wanted to show a group of pictures which had a point of view, an underpinning, a direction. And when I've had students learning how to draw and paint, many students, as soon as they do something that they feel good about, they're interested in selling the picture or in trying to sell it. And for some stupid reason, that wasn't what I was interested in. So, but I ran out of money and I didn't know what to do. A real problem. And Kathleen, I was identifying with what you said earlier. Kathleen, I don't see you here, but you can understand what I'm saying. So what happened was I remembered this exhibit at that gallery. And I remembered thinking that that's the place that I should maybe try to show my work. But I didn't really know how to do this. But sometimes when you are thrown against a wall and you don't know what you're doing, what one might call highly intelligent stupidity works. Okay, so I took a grouping of pictures, photographs, and I went to this gallery. No introduction, from the street. And I walked down this long corridor where that gallery was located, and I walked into a very fancy gallery and into the co-director's office and asked if I said that I had seen an exhibit of Antonio Lopez Garcia about 5 or 6 years before, and I thought there was a connection between his work and mine. Would you mind taking a look at these photographs? I'm not sure if I would do that now, but I did that. And to my great surprise, he looked at the photographs. That was a major first. He could have not looked at them. And his job, which was to assist George Stempley, was basically to get rid of people who came in the way that I did. Okay, to shoo them away, to make sure that they did not get across the moat and meet the king, okay, or the prince. So for some reason or other, he decided to look at my photographs. He took his time. He looked at one after the other, after the other, after the other. And he said to me that he would like to show these photographs to George Stempley. Now, this was solely because of this picture in the New York Times and the exhibit that I saw. So then I received, a few days later, a phone call that they would like to come to Brooklyn to see my work. Now, in 1972 or 1973, Park Slope, Brooklyn was not the Brooklyn today. And these two characters coming to Brooklyn was the equivalent of their going to Paris. In fact, they visited Paris more times per year than they visited Brooklyn. Well, that was easy to say because they never visited Brooklyn. Okay. So they came to visit me in Brooklyn, in this same area where I live, in a slightly different location, which was on Fisk Place, a 1-block street. And they saw other work of mine. And then we went to my studio, which was on 24th Street and 4th Avenue. So these are two very well-dressed social register types who I've now taken to 4th Avenue and 24th Street, which is really quite funny. A very industrial, working class area, factories, low-level industry, etc. Above a building, on the second floor of a building that deals with springs for cars, we go up to the second floor, and there on the second floor is my triptych, the middle panel, one half, possibly 2/3 finished, the left panel white, drawn out, the right panel white, drawn out. I am a little nervous, to say the least, and the two of them examine my painting and don't say anything at all. And they keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And this lasts for maybe a half hour, maybe 40 minutes. At that point, George Stemfley takes out a little black cigar, little fancy black cigar, lights it up and starts smoking. And he's looking at the painting and he looks at me. He's a very mercurial man, very aristocratic and mysterious. So he's smoking the cigar. He's not said anything for that period of time. And then he looks at me and he says to me, I think this is a great painting and I'd like to own it. Okay?
Wow.
I could have fallen on the floor. And this comes from the painting that you're looking at. This comes from a coincidence of that painting. Okay? In life, you need 2 or 3 coincidences, and this is one of them, a big one. So I get very excited and I say, wow, what can I do? How can I help? What's going on? Etc. Both of them put on their very fancy coats and they start walking down the stairs. And I follow them down the stairs. Now we're on 4th Avenue. Cars are winging by. Low-level industry. The spring work people are working on the springs. There's a telephone booth outside. If you've been there, you can imagine what's going on there. One of them calls for a taxi. They both start to get into a taxi. Then the assistant who looked at my work to start with walks over to me and says, "Don't call us. We'll get in touch with you." I think to myself, this is some kind of dream that I'm having, or it's a joke. They're playing a joke on me. Okay. So there's a phone right in the street, right in front of Springworks. I call up Renee on the phone and I say to Renee, I don't know, you can't believe this. I described the whole thing to her. I said, this is some kind of joke, or these people are like playing around or whatever. So go back home, we think about it, but I've never heard of anything like this. So 4 days later, I get a letter from Stemfley Gallery, from Mr. George Stemfley. And he says in the letter, um, Philip Bruno, the man I spoke to first, were very impressed with your work, especially the large, unfinished triptych. We propose to buy your painting unfinished and pay you this amount a month for the next year and a half or 2 years to finish that painting. And that painting, with the other work that you have, plus 2 or 3 other paintings, would become the core of an exhibit. So something which began with looking at this painting by Antonio Lopez Garcia migrated into something which was utterly remarkable and probably in the nature of 10 to 20 million to 1. And all I did for the next year and a half, almost 2 years, year and a half maybe, was work on that painting. And so I guess what it means is that you can never tell. You open up the New York Times, you see a picture, you can just never tell. And I like that way of living. You just try to feel the vibrations and go with it. So any thoughts or questions, I would welcome them, but that's all I have to say.
Well, I can understand why you love this painting.
Well, I wanted you to see the painting for its own sake.
Yes.
It's very important, because if it was
Oh, it's wonderful.
if it was a poor painting, you would not, it wouldn't make sense. But it's a great painting, this one on the screen. But its connection with my life and with a particular painting and just the next 20 years is quite remarkable. Any other questions or thoughts or anything? Jeremy.
Simon, what do you like about this painting? What was it about this that did you find so arresting?
Well, it seems real and unreal at the same time. And it seems like a painting of a dream. The values in the painting are very close together. The painting is beautifully designed. and quite romantic. It's a painting where the subject of the painting lies outside the painting. In other words, as good as it is painted, the subject feels to me like it's outside what the painting looks like. I have difficulty explaining that, but I like that very much in art. And I would say that my triptych has the same quality. So that, wait a minute, let me just finish, that the elements of realism point outside the parameters, the rectangle that's the painting. I could probably think of other things, but that comes to me quickly.
Could you say a bit more about that? I mean, I heard you say like two really fascinating things. I'm going to lose track of them now. One was that it's like it seems real and not real. And
yes.
And then and like I'm just fascinated by why that's a powerful value to you. And then the other thing was where you said that the subject seems to lie outside of the painting. And could you elaborate on that a bit?
The subject is an idea that is above, to the side, behind, 6 feet away, past the painting, somewhere else. It's what the painting makes you think of. It is what the painting challenges you to think about. It's not in this painting, it's somewhere else. So there is a certain amount of figurative art where the subject is in the painting. It's about the rendering or the forms that are in the painting. This is beautifully done, but to me, it is about something past this painting.
Do you feel like it's a painting within a painting?
How do you mean?
Well, in your triptych, you have those beautiful miniatures.
Yeah.
Within your painting.
Well, so in that painting, the images make you think of something past the images. In other words, they make you think of why these images, what connects those images? What is the space between those images? And you could walk into an image and go through it to something.
It's like a portal.
A portal. That's right. That's the right word. A portal. This painting in front of us is like a portal. So it's not academic. It's very, very personal, very mysterious. And so he's suggesting a figuration, but he's not telling you what to think. He's not being exact about it. And you are putting it together. If you are involved with this, you're thinking about, where is it taking me? Something in that direction is what I mean. Like if you're reading a book and the book makes you think past the beautiful words, that's would be an analogy. Any other questions or thoughts?
Simon?
Yes.
Question. you describe this work, the materiality of the work, as a kind of bas relief involving carving into this huge plank of wood. Does that have references for you? I mean, we're going to be talking about triptychs and altarpieces and ecclesiastical kind of art. It brings to mind Augustus St. Gaudens, some of his bronzes and such. Does it have that kind of spiritual dimension for you?
Well, it does, but not because it's a bas relief or it's on wood. It's in the vision, but not because of the wood or the thickness of the wood or anything.
Well, but it lies in kind of an interface between a two-dimensional and three-dimensional object that is relating to yet other dimension.
Yes, that's connected, but you'll see paintings of his that look just like this. So it's not whether it's a three-dimensional or two-dimensional. But on the other hand, he is one of the few artists that I know of working today who draws, paints, and sculpts. That's very unusual. That's a more Renaissance idea. Um, uh, and also this painting and other paintings of Lopez are very experimental. So, for instance, in this painting, I think that some of the surface is burnt, like burnt with a blowtorch, and it has a ashen or cindery quality. And he is very interested in using diverse methodology, but to find the humanity. Okay, so the experimentation points to a humanity that is there. It's not experimentation enclosed for itself. That's appealing to me. So he has humanity or individuality as a kind of goal or address he's leading you to by however means he wants to. Another question or? So in the last period of years, since this exhibit took place of Lopez, a number of artists working out of Spain have been very influenced by this artist. And there is a whole school of work that comes out of Spain that relates to this, and even in terms of Madrid in particular. So I think you'll find his life and his work to be very interesting, and I look forward to showing you the images and speaking about it. That he's very smart, very intelligent, and almost philosophical person. He comes to study in Madrid at a very early age. I think he goes to the main art school there when he's, I think, 13. And he comes from a farming community outside Madrid in another part of Spain. I think the name of the town is called Tamaloso. And in this exhibit that I just saw in Holland, one of the thoughts that I had is how interesting to come from this farming community with parents who wanted him to join their farm or to be an accountant and to choose this direction, to choose this subject matter. The subject matter of his work is very cosmopolitan, very existential, very philosophical. So I wondered when I was looking at the work, I wondered, how does that happen? Isn't that interesting? Well, all right. So then I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. You're going to look for the email with the links, the 3 links. And at some point next week, when I do the presentation, I'm going to just stop for a second and ask you if you want me to continue longer, another week, or if that's fine. It's your call. Anyway, thank you for coming, and enjoyed this very much. And I hope it was not too autobiographical. Enjoy your holiday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
You,
Thanks,
Simon.
Simon.
That was great.
Thank you, Simon.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you,
Thank
really.
you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Super. Mhm.
Thanks.
Thanks, Simon. Good night.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Nice seeing you, Herman, and you, Matthew. And Judy. Thank you, Judy. Okay.
Always
Okay. All right.
very
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
okay. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Okay.